Welcome to On Our Minds. I'm Dr. Russ Witcher,
And I'm Dr. Brenda Wilson.
and we are two journalism professors here at Tennessee Tech. On this podcast, we sit down with other faculty and talk academics, personal interests, and teaching experiences.
Well, all right, on our minds today, we're speaking with Graham Kash, Professor of Communication here at Tennessee Tech. Dr. Kash, welcome, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. I have been teaching at Tennessee Tech for several decades. Is my voice coming through clear? Is all good? Thank you, I appreciate that. I've been teaching at Tennessee Tech for several decades, as I said. I have a bachelor's and a master's in English from Vanderbilt. I have a doctorate in folklore from Indiana. I used to teach a lot of composition and literature. In a way, I still do, but it's not called that. It's part of other courses that I do teach. I teach the two folklore courses, a regional and a general folklore course, and I am one of the coaches for the award-winning Tennessee Tech speech and debate team. I also teach parliamentary procedure and introduction to speaking, or introduction to communication, as we usually call it. So I'm still having a good time, and I enjoy working with teachers and students and others.
You said that you got your doctorate at Indiana in folklore. What caused you to pick Indiana as a place to get a PhD?
Well, the reason was that Indiana has a well-deserved reputation of being extremely good in folklore. Some say the best of all. Naturally, I would say that because I went to it.
Yeah.
But there are others who say it, and not all of them went to it. It has some outstanding professors. Some of them are no longer with us. But for example, Edson Richmond was good at studying ballads. I worked with him a lot. I won't try to name everybody. I had the privilege of working with Henry Glassy, who, in my opinion and the opinion of others, is the best folklorist in the history of the world because he is the most versatile. He can study anything. He can study folk art. He can study tales. He can study architecture. You name it, Henry has done some of it. And he does not call himself wonderful, but everybody else calls him that. And he's maybe the best of many. But I had some of the outstanding professors in the world. I did not become one of them, but they helped me. They improved me. They were a good influence on me.
Well, now you have a variety of interests as well. Music, poetry, storytelling. And we talked about folklore, and I've been wanting to ask you the question as far as Upper Cumberland folklore, do you have a favorite folk tale or story, or several? What would some of those be?
Well, I will first mention that some of the material that I have is drawn from my attendance at various gatherings, especially musical gatherings like the ones at Smithville and Lafayette, Murfreesboro, which is now moving to Shelbyville. But those are some of the places that I gather some lore. I know many stories that are in this region, and some are in other regions. I'll tell a dialect story, which may be true. I could expand this, maybe I won't, but it has to do with far and tar and variant pronunciations of this. This story, which could be true, says that some northerners are driving on a southern road, which has recently been paved but opened too soon. And the asphalt is clinging to the tires. There are at least 4 ways to pronounce tires. I'm just saying the way I usually do it. But they pulled into a service station and said, can you do anything about this tar? Well, I reckon so. Which one needs changing? So that's one of my favorite dialect stories.
I like that one.
Yeah. I don't even consider that dialect. It's it's just the way I talk.
Well,
Exactly.
this matter has to do with, for example, the way that we consider it better to say far building instead of far hall, because some might assume that there are ladders and
Red
pumping
trucks.
devices and so forth. According to tradition, it was President Derryberry's wife, Joan, who noticed that difficulty and suggested calling it the Far Building.
Oh, that's good that she had the foresight to see that.
Yeah, and she was British, right? So
Yes, she was. So she could give us a sort of outside view. She was an important contributor to Tennessee Tech. She was an artist in at least two ways, in music and in painting. She wrote the Tech hymn, which you're probably familiar with.
Yes.
And she also did a lot of painting. And one of her paintings was called The View from Howard Johnson's, as it was called, the restaurant and motel at that time. It's now called the Alpine because somebody from Switzerland is running it and likes to think of his home place. But at that time, it was called Howard Johnson's, and Howard Johnson's is a chain, as you probably know. There are the other Howard Johnsons. And according to tradition, somebody said, well, the vegetation, am I talking too fast? Am I all right?
You're great. Yeah.
All right. Well, there's a story like this. Someone said, well, the vegetation around Howard Johnson's could have grown up, but this doesn't look quite like the view from Howard Johnson's. And somebody said, well, we have a bit of artistic license. This is the way that Howard Johnson should look.
And it is up on an
yeah.
incline, so that's good.
You mentioned that you'd been at Tech for several decades. Tell us how, in your opinion, higher education has changed in terms of the administration, in terms of the students. What have you noticed during that time?
Well, when somebody asks me that question, I'll give a quotation from French. I can speak French, and I've taught in France. I keep forgetting which French author said this, but I'll give a quotation and then translate it. It says, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. And that's often translated as the more things change, the more they remain the same. I cannot say that there is a great difference, even though we have maybe 2.5 times as many students here as we had when I first came. I don't have 2.5 times as many students. We just have more teachers to take care of the students. I find many more similarities than I do differences. Most of the students are good. Most of them are trying hard. And there are a few lost sheep who wander off, but most of them are good. I just don't see any great differences in what I'm doing. Now, we have some programs, doctoral programs, and others that we did not have when I came here. But most of what is added, I'm not directly involved in. What I'm doing is much the same as it's always been. Of course, I try to keep doing it better.
All right, yes. You were a Fulbright scholar in France.
Yes,
that correct?
I received a Fulbright teaching fellowship.
Teaching fellowship,
I was there for 10 months as a Fulbright professor in literature. Again, slow me down if I'm going too fast. I'm all right. Well, that was at the University of Bordeaux, which is about 300 miles southwest of Paris. And we were in Bordeaux most of the time. We did visit Paris and London and Berlin and other places, but I was there most of the time. And what impressed me about the students was, first of all, I was in what we would loosely call an English department, and I'd speak French in everyday conversation around town. But they liked for me to speak English most of the time because it gave them a chance to practice their English. And most of them were quite good at English with an English accent, which is natural British accent because they were close to that. So I would be teaching in English most of the time. It was a lot like the time that I was studying French here, only in reverse. I did not have a major in French, but I had a minor in French and kept up an interest in it. And we would give speeches in French in class. We'd write exams in French. And of course, we made some mistakes, but that's all right. We had fun and learned something. So it was that situation sort of turned around. And I found that the students were quite well prepared. The way the educational system is set up, it was more like teaching juniors and seniors than it was like freshmen and sophomores. It was the education there is a bit advanced over ours, and so when they're at the university, it's almost as if they've already had 2 years of what we would call preparation there.
Well, and you've, as you said, you coached the award-winning speech and debate team here at Tech.
Yes.
At what point in your life did you get interested in speech and debate? Was that earlier as a high school or college student, or after?
Well, I got interested in speech and debate because I was on a speech and debate team myself. And there was a need here to have someone to go ahead and do it, and I was familiar with it, and I went ahead and did it. We carry on the tradition of Herman Pinkerton, who founded the team in 1930. Some say something was stirring as early as 1920, and he was born in 1893. And I had the privilege of knowing him. And some might say, well, how is that possible? Because he lived to be 100 years old. Mm-hmm. So his later time overlapped with my earlier time. And we try to carry on his good tradition. We do two kinds of speaking. We do debate. We also do what we call individual events, such as impromptu and humorous. Some of it you have to put together on the spur of the moment. Some of it you can prepare and practice. It depends on what kind of speaking that you're doing. And we used to go actually in person to various colleges, and sometimes we still do. But on account of the virus, there was a growth in the, let's say, electronic means of holding tournaments. And so now it's a mixture. Some are electronic tournaments, and some we actually go to. Like we have actually been to Murfreesboro, Middle Tennessee. The last several years we've been to Pellissippi, which is close to Knoxville. And the in-person tournaments, I think, are better in themselves, but we have a mixture of tournaments at this time.
One question I would ask you is, what would your advice be to someone who's considering going into the teaching profession? People talk about there being a morale problem. How do you keep up your enthusiasm through a long career in the field?
Well, I would say first realize you're not going to get rich in money. Mm-hmm. But you can get rich in other ways. You can get interested in education, and you can have fun in what you're doing, especially in a profession. If you're not having fun with what you're doing, you ought to be doing something else, mm-hmm. if you can. Mm-hmm. And I've always had fun at school. I always loved school. I've always been into teaching and being taught, and I'm not really sure what I would be doing if I were not in school. Mm-hmm. I would always wonder when some people said, well, I'm about to graduate, I'm through with school. And my view was, I don't want to be through with school. I like school. I want to stay in school. So that was one of my reasons for taking up teaching.
Got to stay
I'm
in
more
school.
more at home in school than I am in any other place.
Yeah.
Yes. And you teach a variety of classes. One is that general studies public speaking course. Public speaking is one of those things they say people fear almost as much as death. How do you put the students at ease, or how do you respond if they're wondering why we're having them take a course in public speaking and communication?
Well, there are several ways we can do this. I never have understood this idea of being afraid of public speaking. I'm not afraid of it. I've been giving public speeches since I was 6 years old, so I'm used to it. Some say that one great fear is public speaking, another one is flying on a plane, and another one is snakes. And that the worst of all would be to having to make a speech with snakes after you
On a plane
while
full
you're on
of
a plane.
snakes.
Yes, yes. What I do in part is this: I try to relax the students. I say, look, this is not like a ball game in which some people be cheering for you and some people be cheering against you. Everybody in the room wants you to make a good speech. Who wants to listen to a bad speech?
True.
So everybody in the room is for you. Everybody will help you. One way I try to relax students is that when they give the first speech, I don't grade the first speech. I put a critique on the outline that they give me. But I put only what I like, maybe 3 or 4 aspects that strike me especially. And then I say, I want you to keep doing this. Now I say on the other speeches, I will continue to put what you're doing that's good. I will, in addition, suggest improvements, and I will put a grade. But we don't need to start by thinking about a grade. So that is one of the ways that relaxes the students. They also will usually give 6 speeches. So if they have trouble on a speech or 2, there are ways they can make it up by doing better later. Now, those are some of the ways that I try to relax the students.
Are you always able to find at least one good thing to say about a student's speech?
Oh yes,
Yes.
you can always
Maybe
find
more.
you can always find 3 or 4 good things to say. You can say you had a good introduction. You can say you gave some good examples. You can say that you had a good organization. You can say you related the speech to your own experience. There's always something good that you can say.
So they can find out they may be better at it than they realized. Right?
Yes.
You not only have advised the speech and debate team, but we're running out of room for all the trophies that have been won under your leadership. How do you account for the success over the decades of the team? What makes a good speech and debate team?
Well, I would say that we have had some good coaches. I try to be one of them myself. I said. But we had a legacy before I was doing this. Now, we had Herman Pinkerton, as I said. Some of these people you know about, some of them you don't. We had Bill Floyd. We had Robert Woodland. That have had some good coaches. That's one way that we maintained the quality. Another one was that in our classes, whether they're speech classes or not, we say, if you're interested in the speech team, come and talk to me. My office is on the 3rd floor of Henderson Hall. I'm notorious. Everybody knows where I am, and I'm there a lot of the time, especially Monday and Wednesday, so come and talk to me. I say that in the basement of Henderson Hall, room 004, we have speech practice from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock on Monday and Wednesday. Come check us out. Sign this piece of paper. Put your telephone number and maybe another number on it to indicate your interest. But if you come and visit us, that doesn't mean that you're promising to be on the team. If you do, that's fine. But we understand that you're investigating. And I would point out also that we have always been open to those in all majors. They don't have to be majoring in something in humanities. In fact, some of our best speakers have been in engineering, perhaps partly because they're good at analysis.
Yeah.
So these are some of the ways that we recruit people for the team. Now, we have to keep at it. There are always going to be some people that are dropping off. We can't relax. We have to keep going. But as the Marines say, we're always looking for a few more good folks.
And those are the ones that sign up or are interested in public speaking. I imagine, are you able to, I guess, recruit other students by showing them the benefit of having those skills? Like that student who says, you know, why do I need to be good at public speaking? Why do I need to know this? What sort of things do you tell the students as you're recruiting them? How is it going to benefit them afterward?
You're talking about the long-range benefit? Mm-hmm. Well, no matter what we're majoring in, no matter what profession we take up, oral communication is extremely important. We have to be ready for this. We have to be able to conduct interviews. We need to be able to participate in interviews. Before I received the Fulbright Fellowship to teach in France, it was something like this. And I got interviewed in English. Of course, you would expect that. Then it was something like this. Oh, now it's time to be interviewed in French. And I could have taken a discouraged view. I could have said, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. I'm going home. I quit. But instead, I tried to take a positive view. I said something like, oh, bon, continuons, ce sera beaucoup de plaisir, which means, let's go, that'll be fun. And I did. So I'm not saying that I was the best, but I showed that I could navigate it, and I was ready for about anything that happened.
My final question, and it's something that we are planning on asking really all the professors that we talk to, but what do you say to a student who might say a folklore, why do I need to know this? What would you say in defense of knowing about, say, the folklore of your region that you grew up in?
If you're going to be in a profession such as English teaching, such as sociology teaching, it is obvious that there is an overlap with folklore. But suppose that is not the case. We need to study folklore as part of our tradition, to appreciate our family, to appreciate our region. In fact, one of the points that I make in the folklore teaching is to show people how much folklore they already know. Mm-hmm. As I said, professional family folklore, regional folklore, it's part of our education. Now, if you're not going to use folklore in your profession, it is still good to know as part of a general education. When I was in college, I liked to take some courses that had nothing to do with what I was going to do in English, folklore, or speech. I took an economics course. I didn't have to take an economics course. I took an astronomy course. I didn't have to take an astronomy course. I'd already taken all the science courses that I had to take. Mm-hmm. But it was good for me to do that, to know something about what's going on. I had a teacher who expressed this matter very well, idealistically. He said, know everything about something and something about everything. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, we can't do either one, but those are good directions to try for.
Yes, I can see a connection with folklore even in what I teach. I teach public relations, and knowing the culture of the audience you're trying to reach helps connect with that audience. And so I find folklore interesting on many levels.
Yeah.
I don't know what have we asked everything we want to?
Well, probably in the allotted amount of time that we have, but yeah, we could listen to stories.
Yeah, we do what we call extra credit time, where we just sort of chat informally and leave it going. We've asked some of our other guests, what is the most surprising or odd
Well,
thing that might have happened in the classroom as you've taught for many years. So I'm sure you have a lot of stories, but are there any you'd like to share of anything?
well,
odd?
I'm going to tell you a story about my own experience, and then I'm going to tell you a second or third hand story from the Smoky Mountains.
Okay.
From my own experience, when I was a graduate teaching assistant at Indiana, a student brought me an apple. That was an apple for the teacher,
Okay.
and I ate it. It was good. Yes, it did not contain any harmful substance.
You didn't get sick, anything
So
like that.
I appreciate it.
That was
Now,
nice.
the other one I'll tell is from the Smoky Mountains. The rangers in the Smoky Mountains will tell you some interesting stories. Now, it's always good there and the state parks and elsewhere to talk to the rangers because they know what they're talking about and they know how to present it. They have to give speeches about it every day.
Right.
So one of the rangers had trouble with somebody who was a bit off on his geography. He said, the inquirer said this, that which is the way to Mount McKinley? Denali. So
Quite a ways.
maybe the conversation then went something like this. Well, you go up the Northwest Road a ways, about 2,000 miles, and you come to a big settlement called Seattle.
You're going to want to drive, right?
And then you hang a half dog leg left and go 2,000 mile more, and there it is. Denali, the Indians call it, the great one,
Right.
20,000 feet, the highest mountain in North America. You can't miss it.
Yeah. What mountain do you think he was meaning to refer to when he said McKinley?
We don't really know. He may have been talking about the highest mountain in Tennessee, which is Clingman's Dome.
Yeah.
And that gets garbled too. Some people will call it Hangman's Dome and Clinchman's Dome and Clinchman's Dome and so forth. That is the highest mountain in Tennessee. It's on the border of North Carolina. It's probably the second highest mountain in the Appalachians, little below Mount Mitchell, which you
Yeah.
can see.
been there.
I was going to guess maybe Mitchell was
Mitchell,
what he meant
Mitchell is the
instead of-
highest one in the east.
Instead of McKinley,
Yes.
then maybe Mitchell,
Yeah.
the M,
In North Carolina.
maybe.
You can drive up to 6,300 feet. And then if you want to get the other 300 feet, you have to walk. And you go up 300 feet in half a mile.
Yeah.
And if you're in good health, it won't hurt you, but you'll feel it. You may have to stop a time or two.
Yeah. When I was there, we were above the clouds. That's
Yeah.
how high.
Well, I'll tell you a story in just a minute about like that. But when you go to the top of the path, Clingman's Dome, there is a circular observation tower. You walk to the top of it, and you will see markers that say that way is Knoxville, that way is Mount Mitchell, that way is Mount Guyot, and so forth. And I'm familiar with this. I'll tell you a story if you've got time.
Sure.
Right here.
Good time.
All right, this involves the military department at Tech, and it goes something like this. We had a cold spell some years ago. It got down to this is the first week in June. It got down to 50 degrees in Nashville, maybe 45 here, and in the high Smokies, like Clingman's Dome and Mount LeConte, it got down to 30 and snowed. And that was the first week in June. And so they pulled a little joke on somebody at the military department. Somebody else told me about it. It went like this. Somebody said, well, Captain, that I understand that you are going to get a promotion. What? A promotion? Well, how do you know? Well, I heard the colonel say you'd get a promotion when it's a cold day in June.
And there it is.
Well,
Well,
thank you for
yes.
spending time with us. We really appreciate you coming and sharing your experiences.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity.